Welcome to Better Odds Sports Betting. Here's our hosts, Kev O'Neill and Kyle Hunter.
Everybody, welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. I'm your host, Kev O'Neill, here with my partner, Kyle Hunter. And sorry we're not doing this live today. Kyle and I have some things going on. But we just got done watching an NFL game, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Dolphins. And Kyle, as you know, is a Bengals fan, which I'm happy for him for that big win. A little sad about what happened to Tua, though. We just got a report he's actually being released, which is great. But it just seems very strange that immediately he gets a concussion after what happened last week. It's going to be the talk of the week, isn't it, Kyle?
Oh man, it is. I hated to see that for Tua too. I mean, I'm not necessarily a Dolphins fan, but I like Tua and I root for him to have success. Weird surroundings of the injury that was quote unquote a back injury. And then, that happens immediately today. The Bengals get a nice win, but that's definitely not going to be what the talk is about here coming up. There's going to be a lot of talk about what happened there, and I think somebody's going to be in trouble.
I think so, too. I almost think that this was such a bad spot for Miami that, even if there was some sort of thought that he could be prone to concussions, being that it happened so fast, why not just sit him out this game anyway? It was just a very weird decision here because that you get a nice 10-day rest after this, so it just was mismanaged, I believe, Kyle, in my opinion.
Yeah, feels unnecessary. It didn't have to go this way.
Yeah, it certainly does, but I'm really happy to hear he's out. Guessing he'll probably miss next game due to this, but hopefully he'll come back and nice and healthy and obviously rebound well, because I am a Tua fan as well. So let's move on to a big slate of games, Kyle. It looks like it's kind of heating up a little bit now in college football. We got some bigger games coming up. Conference play is really getting started, which is pretty cool. And I see that you have your Hawkeyes hat on. Does that mean that we're going to be talking about Hawkeyes versus Michigan?
Absolutely, it does. We got to talk some Big Ten football here. We have not really talked Big Ten as much as we could have so far this year. I'm sure we'll talk about it plenty, but I think now's a good chance.
Now is a good chance for it, absolutely. And the talk of the week is the hurricane, of course, and it did ravage some parts of Florida. It looks like Fort Myers really got hit pretty hard, and a lot of the beaches wiped away. Some of the roads are wiped away, and obviously from a betting perspective, you've seen unders happen all week. Really started like Sunday night, Monday morning, though, in Florida, and then it kind of moved up to the Georgia, Carolinas. But now it's looking like the storm is even taking another shift that might come towards Central through the Tennessees, through the even up to Ohio. What we're seeing, I'm not sure what to believe. And I'm almost to the point where these unders nowadays, Kyle, get hit so quickly that maybe it's just better to wait, and maybe some of this stuff might be an overreaction.
Yeah, Kiev, I've been kind of tracking the market movement here and seeing some of those games that are deep in the Southeast kind of get bet back to the over. We saw those games get really low. I'm thinking of the NC State Clemson game. What a big game that one is, too. A 7-point spread there, and that one was as low as 39, and now it's back up to 44. It started at 46, so that one's come back up a lot. We've seen the several of the other games, Duke, Virginia, Rice, Charlotte and UTEP also come back up. So we're starting to see some buyback, and the over is getting hit. And then we're seeing games played farther north where the storm is moving, getting hit down. So we've seen a lot of movement. This is probably the wildest week of movement. And Kiev, I got to be honest, it's a little bit difficult as a totals guy when people are going to hammer these Monday at 6 a.m. This is a weather report that's like, it's like 5 days away, guys. Like, we could wait a little bit, and everybody hammers all of them right away. So a few years ago, you could bet those Wednesday afternoon. You could wait till Wednesday or so, and then now it's just earlier and earlier all the time.
I mean, I remember the good old days talking with you when, weather was like our biggest things. We would be way ahead of the line moving on a Tuesday, but at the same time, these lines weren't really out in a lot of these books until, Monday, Tuesday. And there's a couple that came out early on Sunday that you and I would just pick off, but it's definitely a lot different. But I'll tell you this, us as sports bettors, we're not that good weathermen because we didn't know that this thing was going to be going up Midwest. And, we're not even sure about that either. I'm not sure. I figure at some point the jet stream's going to grab it, and the westerly winds are going to take it east. And that's what I suspect. But maybe it does get all the way up to Ohio, and you see some of those totals get hit a little bit too. But right now, I think it might be safer just to kind of check the day of the weather and see if something's been overbought, and you might have an opportunity there.
I think so too. The other thing we got to keep in mind is this is probably a game that you saw as well. Virginia Tech in North Carolina was one that I think this one got bet down like 10 points at one point. I've watched enough North Carolina. It's like North Carolina can't tackle anybody. I mean, they haven't been stopping anybody. I hate to bet under even if it's 30 miles per hour winds and rain. I mean, like now that one's going back up as well. And we have seen some of the Ohio ones, even Ohio State, Rutgers and Ohio State's gone down 2.5 points here today. Again, though you have to ask yourself, couldn't Ohio State probably score a lot of points, even if it is a little windy and rainy and something like that? So I don't think you should just blindly bet things like that without putting some context to it.
I remember betting a Middle Tennessee State game under. It was windy and rainy, but the running game was so easy for those teams. And the running defense was so bad. The number went up into the 80s, and I got smoked on it. I think what a lot of people don't understand is like a lot of rain helps the running game on the offense because the defense has to react. The running back already knows where he's going. Same with the line. So if there's a bad rushing defense, 10-yard chunks are stopping the clock anyway. It's just like throwing a pass, and I think that's a big warning for people when you're betting these totals that if they're bad run Ds, it can get over in a different way.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think my favorite under to take with the weather is a team on offense that's reliant on throwing the ball that can't run it very well, or a team defensively that maybe not very good against the pass, but they're really good at stopping the run. I think that's a better setup because then you say, okay, this is playing to their strength. They're going against, the offense's strength. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think we're going to see plenty of wild moves between now and Saturday at kickoff on these. So, let's get into some of these games.
Let's get into it right away. We got Iowa hosting Michigan. And if you remember last year, this was the Big Ten championship game, and it wasn't close. Iowa got blown out by Michigan, and that's why a lot of people jumped on Michigan when they got in the playoffs, which was a massive mistake, as we saw. But right now, it's interesting because the spread is 10.5 now, 11, I think. I'm just going to pull it up here on DraftKings so we can share it. And I believe the Iowa is 10.5, correct? And the total is pretty low here at 42. I'm actually going to share my screen here for anybody watching so they can actually see what's going on. So in my opinion, Kyle, it's interesting. I'm going to ask you a question. Where would you compare Iowa with Maryland? Do you think, obviously one's an offensive team and one's a defensive team. Where would you power rate these two teams off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think it's really tough because they're so different. Iowa's games go so differently than Maryland's. I think Iowa's slightly better team overall than is Maryland, but I'm not really confident in that, Kiev. I think Maryland's defense is bad. But Talia's been playing really good on offense. Maybe Maryland's a little better than I think. And, Iowa's been so bad on offense. It's possible I'm a little too high on them, but I have Iowa rated slightly higher.
Yeah, I have them pretty close. I think that most of the other sites actually even have Maryland a little bit higher, but I personally have them very close. But that's interesting because if you look at the situation, one's offensive base, one's defensive base, but the power rating has to be one number. So a lot of these teams A lot of these team power rating sites have like between 7 and 8.5. But you look at the spread here. Michigan was minus 17 against Maryland at home for most of the week. And now if you do the 6-point adjustment from going away to home, it's corrected about 10.5. So it almost looks like the perception is the same here with the spread. But I'll tell you this is a low total. And, especially when it comes to home dogs, I'm not looking to lay away chalk when it comes to a pretty low total like this, Kyle.
I don't think you're going to make money long-term betting on college football if you're just betting, favorites of 10.5 points with a total of 42 or 42.5. I mean, you could win one bet, certainly, but long-term, I don't think that's a good way to win. In this game, I think it's important to point out that Michigan's offense has slowed down quite a bit from last year, too. They have a different offensive coordinator. They're 109th in tempo so far this year. They really haven't played a good defense. I mean, look at their schedule so far this year. Who has Michigan played defensively that's even decent? I mean, I don't think Maryland's a good defense. And the rest of the teams they've played have been absolute cupcakes, certainly. This is a good Michigan team, very good in general. I don't know how amazing their offense is because we haven't seen them against a good defense. So there is some unknown going into this one. Iowa's offense is terrible. I've got nothing nice to say about Iowa's offense. I don't think you do either. So I'll get that out of the way to start with right at the beginning. Spencer Petrus, I keep thinking somebody has to be better than him for Iowa quarterback, but apparently not. I know they tried to play a different guy last year and didn't go very well either. But this is a really bad Iowa offense. At the same time, Iowa's a great defense. This is a really, really good defense. I think this is a top 5 defense in the country. In Iowa, really well-coached defense. They make great adjustments. And you remember last year, Michigan ran up the score on them in the Big Ten title game. I was reading some press clippings that Iowa did not appreciate that very much. 42-3, they were throwing double passes up 30 points in the fourth quarter. So I think Iowa is pretty motivated for this game. Now, is that enough just to cover a spread? I'm not sure. They gotta be good enough. I think in terms of tackling, though, PFF grades these two teams number 1 and number 6 in the country, and overall defenses in the country so far this year, number 1 and number 2. Iowa number 1, Michigan number 2. I'm not sure that they're the number 1 and 2 defenses in the country, but these are really good defenses. I think this total is low for a very good reason. I think it should be a very low total. But if you're giving me 10.5, 11 points with that low of a total, I'm taking the points with Iowa for my free play here. I'm going to put a little bit of pizza money on that one. I think that it's honestly, it's going to be one of those painful bets, Kiev. I don't want to watch this game. I don't think I can watch this. So I think this one will be while I'm going to the Ohio State's game. But I wouldn't want to watch this game anyways because it'll be painful. But I think Iowa is the right type of bet to make here with that low of a total.
It's really disgusting, too, about these teams is, Iowa, their strength of schedule. Yeah. They played Iowa State. I was on Rutgers last week and, the spread didn't exactly move in my favor. It probably even moved a little bit away, but I was right on the point where I thought Rutgers can put up some yards on them, but their stupid mistakes giving them 2 defensive scores is what really killed me. And that's what covered the spread. And I even wrote that in the handicap. I'm like, as long as the turnover margin isn't +1 or -1, I thought I have a shot at covering this. But that's exactly how I lost it. And it's so hard to predict games like that because you've seen Iowa do this to Iowa State last year. You saw them do it to Maryland last year. It's just that weird team. But here's the thing. Michigan, even on the backup quarterback, as we know, McNamara is out. I think they're coached well enough to not screw up. And they know that screwing up's the only way to blow this game. And I don't expect a big blowout. But if I look at these two teams, Kyle, I feel that Michigan didn't get much worse than they did last year, but Iowa did. I feel like Iowa's offense is much worse. Even though they have the same quarterback, they're just not putting up any points. 124th in offensive success rate, 127th in passing success rate. Of course, they're just living off their defense, but when you look at their strength of schedule, there wasn't really a lot there. I think Iowa State's got a down year too. So, in my opinion, I think that I would lean to Iowa just based on the total, but probably a game I'm going to stay away.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, even maybe if you want to bet a team total here, playing an under on the team that you don't like, I do think this could be a low scoring game with very few possessions in the game. Both teams wanting to run the football a decent amount. Corum's a really good player for Michigan, and if Iowa can keep him in check, then they have a chance here. But I'm not saying I think Iowa will win this game. I'm just saying I would take the points if I were taking something against the spread here.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's a fair play. I would not be shocking at all them in their revenge spot from being so embarrassed last year to pick this one up and take it home. Let's move on to another game, and we're going to go a little bit Power 5 crazy here, sticking in the Big Ten to the SEC now. The two better conferences, and then you have a couple really good games. You have Mississippi State hosting Texas A&M. And so this is about a 3.5 to 4 point spread. I believe it just moved to 4, actually. Let's pull it up here, and I'll share my screen. It's at 4 points here. The total of this game is a low 45 again. So you have a little bit of contrast in styles here. Jimbo Fisher has not been doing it for me as a head coach. I almost thought he should be a dead man walking last year, but then, he beats Alabama somehow, even though he's losing to, some very inferior teams. And then he kind of did the same thing this year with Appalachian State. What are you doing losing to Appalachian State? And I'm not saying Appalachian State's a bad team whatsoever. They're a very good team, and maybe the Sun Belt is the best Group of 5 conference. But you can't lose like that at home. Last week was very fraudulent. They got a fumble 6, I guess you call it, but a 14-point swing when KJ Jefferson fumbled that ball. And not only that, Arkansas missed a field goal to win it. It's thank goodness I had the +2.5 last week. A lot of people took -1.5 on A&M, so it was like one hell of a middle. But for this situation, Kyle, I'm just gonna give myself a little pat on the back. I saw this move and I put a big bet on Mississippi State at -2, but now I have some options. But here's the thing: you have a low total, and you have a very defensive-oriented team at Texas A&M. Do I completely trust Mississippi State in this position? I think Mississippi State's a better team, and that's why I bet them at home under the 3. I think this could warrant a buyback for me for half at the 4. I want to see what your thoughts on this game is.
I'm looking at the odds board here, and I'm seeing some extra juice on 4 on some of these books. It's really taking some money. I'm starting to wonder if there's going to be a 4.5 at some point. If there's a 4.5 at some point, then that becomes a pretty easy decision to at least buy back part of it, especially with that low of a total. This is an interesting game because Texas A&M, the one thing that they do have is a really good secondary. They have a very good secondary. It's going to be a great matchup with Leach and Rogers going against that secondary. Texas A&M's run defense has been really bad. I don't know if Mississippi State's really the team that takes advantage of that much. One thing that I think is Arnett, the defensive coordinator for Mississippi State, is underrated. I think Mississippi State's defense has gotten so good here with Arnett leading the way. I think they're better than Texas A&M's defense overall, honestly, and I don't even know. And before the season, people would probably think I was crazy for saying that, but it sure looks like they're better. Texas A&M defensively has some really good talent in the secondary. Overall, they have had some weaknesses. And as you said, they had a fraudulent win last week. Very fortunate to win that game. Honestly, I think Texas A&M on offense too. I mean, what can you say about Texas A&M on offense? Anaya Smith is out now, right? So with him out for the season, he was their offense for a long time. I mean, this guy was doing everything for them. They weren't doing anything good on offense, even with him in there, really. I mean, they had a really weak offense so far. I think their quarterback now is better than Haynes King. I think Johnson has done a little bit better job. So a bit of an upgrade there. But I think here, the team I trust more is Mississippi State. My problem is now you've gotten to 4. You're getting to -4. total of 45. I get pretty nervous about wanting to lay 4 points against a quality Texas A&M team, a team that has tons of talent. And let's be honest, this is not really what I set out to, bash Jimbo Fisher or anything, but really Fisher has a lot of talent here. If they don't win games, it's not looking great for him because there's a lot of pressure on you when you bring in the top recruiting class in the country and you have that many good players. If you lose to App State at home, you better pick up some really big wins along the way here going out. I think Mississippi State is the team that I trust a bit more here. Texas A&M's defense has been able to stop people in the red zone constantly. Opponents 3 touchdowns and 12 trips into the red zone and 5 turnovers in the red zone. So I don't think you can keep that up. I don't think that's something that's predictive, honestly. I know some people say, well, look how amazing they've been in the red zone. There is something to be said about a bend but don't break, but you can't have everybody just turn it over all the time in the red zone. So I don't trust Texas A&M. At the same point, I hate this line move being this extreme now. I kind of like the under, but I don't really want to bet an under in a Mike Leach game that's 45, So it's a tough game. I'll be honest. At this point, it's a tough bet.
Mike Leach has been different. His tempo's only 99th right now. It's kind of strange how he made that adjustment in the SEC. It's kind of been progressively slowing down. He used to be dead overs back in the Texas Tech and Washington State days. So it's a little bit mind-blowing. But what I do like about this situation, Kyle, is that both these teams have played a schedule, so the stats make sense a little bit. Like when there's matchups where one of them has a really bad strength of schedule, like Michigan, and that Michigan played a bunch of cupcakes for the most part, minus finally going against Maryland and not covering. These two teams actually played a schedule. Mississippi State played LSU, as we know. They played a pretty good Arizona team, one that's better than we thought coming in. Memphis, and then Bowling Green, not so good, but they went on the road twice. Texas A&M's only, I guess, away from home game was against Arkansas, but then they played Miami and App State. At least they played those teams. Of course, Sam Houston State was easy, but I should have mentioned that they were also outgained by Miami. Miami kind of blew that, and their red zone defense had to really stick it through to win this. Now, if they stop all the touchdowns here, they do have a shot to win this. How good is this red zone defense? But, metrically, to be honest with you, it really does favor Mississippi State here. Mississippi State, 21st in offensive success rate. A&M's the Iowa of the SEC right now at 94th in offensive success rate. It's kind of funny how we are picking these teams, Kyle. 123rd in offensive line yards, so there is a pretty big discrepancy there. The fact that these strength of schedules are very close on Sagarin also gives me a little bit more confidence when I'm looking at Mississippi State as well. Mississippi State's a home team. They're higher in total EPA than Mississippi State. Than Texas A&M. So this was a pretty easy play for me when I saw it at the 2. Now let's get into the 4. It's definitely getting dicey. So if you can find a 3.5, I would probably still give them a lean. If I was a bookmaker and I didn't have to do anything with the market, I would probably put this at 4.5 points, Val.
I think 4 is a good number here. I think 45 has gotten a bit low to take the under. This one was higher than this, so. I hate to not give a strong opinion, but I honestly just don't really know what I would bet at this point. This would be a pass for me, but it's one that I definitely want to watch. I think this should be a great game.
Texas A&M 95th in EPA margin. It's pretty low. That's what some of the bad teams. While Mississippi State's in the top 35 at least, I believe, and top 29 actually. So massive difference, and that's why you saw this money coming in for them. So that's really interesting. Let's move on to the final game then. Pretty big game with Alabama versus Arkansas, and I have a play on this one, Kyle. So I'm going to let you go first and see if the stars align.
Sure. Let's see the live line for this one. I want to make sure.
Yeah, it's funny. Alabama's favored against A&M next week at -21. On the road at Arkansas, they're -17.5, which is kind of interesting. It's almost like they're saying that Arkansas is a little bit worse than A&M right now, which I disagree with. So,
Well, I think it's interesting because the other thing is Alabama's been pretty bad on the road the last couple of years. This
that
is
too.
this is something that is not, we haven't seen them prove it against a good team on the road. They should have lost to Auburn. I mean, they definitely should have lost to Auburn last year. I didn't get to see that game, but I think they probably should have lost to Texas, right? So Texas had all the chances in the world to beat them. And, now you go to Arkansas. This is a massive game for Arkansas. Arkansas should have won last week, like we said. Now they come home to play Alabama. It's the one thing that really has me concerned about Arkansas is their tackling grade. They've missed a lot of tackles this year, 126th in tackling grade so far this year, which is really bad. Alabama's passing attack's not the same without Mechie and Jamison Williams. Bryce Young's tremendous, so I'm certainly not blaming him for any of it. I think Bryce Young's a superstar and will be a really good NFL player. This Bama team, obviously you lose two-star wide receivers like that, you're going to have some trouble, but I think they've had a little bit more trouble than I thought they would. KJ Jefferson without Burks as well. So you've lost the top three receivers from last year. I think here it's really hard to lay that many points with Alabama, Kiev. The only way I could bet this would be to take the points with Arkansas. I mean, I'm curious to see your lean on this one, but at this price, it's gone far enough that I think 17.5, I have to take Arkansas. Now, if Arkansas gets down early, and they have to try to throw it to get back, this game could get out of hand because Arkansas, that's not really how they win. They win by running the football, ball control, and their defense is without Jalen Catalon. They're really good safety. So I could see Alabama having success, certainly moving the football, but I do think Arkansas can move the ball as well here. I'm going to lean here to the plus 17.5.
Good stuff. First of all, it wouldn't surprise me to see Alabama blow them out. I mean, first, you should say that about anybody they're playing except for Ohio State and Georgia, right? I mean, let's just get that out there. But at the same time, you have to go with value when you see it. This is one of those situations where I can't handicap it based upon the stats. I just think Alabama's strength of schedule has just been way too easy. So you can talk about EPA, you can talk about yards per play margin. It's a massive difference. Arkansas played South Carolina, which has a pretty good quarterback, as we know. They had to play Cincinnati, which was a playoff team coming back this year. And then they went to Texas A&M. Well, they went to Texas and AT&T Stadium and played a very tough Texas A&M team where they should have won. Their only cupcake was Southwest Missouri State. And yes, they struggled a little bit, but it was really more of a look ahead, in my opinion. While Alabama, playing Utah State, which is terrible this year, Louisiana Monroe, and Vanderbilt. Their only test was at Texas, and they could have lost that game. They probably should have lost that game. I don't like Bama's receivers this year. I think they're a massive step down, like you just said. The thing about Bama is they've kind of showed these signs last year on the road where they struggled. They almost lost to Florida last year. They lost on the road to Texas A&M last year, and they struggled against LSU, and they lost. But they should have got beat by Auburn. Auburn blew it and went out of bounds on that running play, if you remember, boosting Alabama into the playoffs, which was pretty insane. Well, Alabama got to play Georgia anyway, and they probably would have made it, but maybe we would have saw Utah. Who knows? But Arkansas played this team last year. KJ Jefferson played them. They're down for a while, and they had to play catch up, but they got the feeling about what this Alabama team is, and they're playing against the same guys. They kept it within 7 points when it came to the end of this game, and now they're playing at home. I like the spot. They're disappointed with what happened last week. They know they should have won this game. They did get a lot of talent in the transfer portal, Kyle, as you know, and I think it's time for that talent to show up here. I can't trust Alabama on the road, and the spot really favors them. If you really want to get super cute, Alabama's only loss to Texas A&M during the regular season is up next. So maybe some of the players are thinking about that a little bit. I don't know. but they got off the schneid after the Texas game and blew some poor Vanderbilt team off. This could be flat. If I was making the book, I'm making it 13 just upon my, a strong power rating. I have it 14.5, but I got to award Arkansas and I got to take away Alabama for the spot a little bit. I bet Arkansas plus 17.5 for 2.5 stars, Kyle. And that's the play I'm giving out.
All right, Kiev. I like it. Good analysis. I'm going to bet a little bit on this one too. I like that you like this one as well. That would certainly have been my lean to start with, and it's just hard to get to 17.5 on the road. I mean, Alabama's a great team. Both of us know that, and like you said, they could blow out Arkansas and nobody would be stunned. But we're betting on probabilities here. And like you said, last year at Alabama, 42-35, Arkansas put up almost 500 yards. So they moved the ball very well. Obviously, they gave up a lot as well. But this is a game where I think both teams can have success on offense. And you tell me Alabama's going on the road where, like you said, I mean, you listed, I had forgotten. You're right, that Florida game, that was a really rough one as well. So Alabama's really not proven it on the road. We have to go. Was last week's game against Vanderbilt on the road? I think it was. I mean, it doesn't matter, but
I think it was at home. But okay. Let me see if it's. It was at home. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, but I can't remember if they did that to Vandy on the road. Not that it really matters, but that was the perfect beatdown spot for Alabama, right? And now, like you said, they have a big game next week, which. Man, that game, the next game coming up, Texas A&M and them have had some disagreements in the offseason. I imagine that, I'll tell you what, that's going to be a fun one to talk about. But
they recruited against each other hard, so
definitely,
definitely. Really
so yeah, I'm gonna go with you here and bet something on Arkansas. I think that's a good look here.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, we'll see if it was right to fade Bama coming into this week. Just a little note here. This is not going to be my most likely dog to win outright. So I'm taking the spread here, buddy. Let's move on to some NFL. And we're going to go with the Sunday night game at first, as we usually do. The Kansas City Chiefs are playing the Tampa Bay Bucks, and this spread's been bouncing a little bit. At one point, you could have got the Bucks at +2, and I'm going to admit right now, I took them in a teaser with the Broncos when it was +2. Now that the Bucks are -1, it is out of teaser territory. But there's a reason that there's some move back. A lot of the Bucks are getting healthy. Not really their offensive line so much, but a lot of their skill positions are coming back. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. They could blow out any team, but at the same time, they don't have that Tyreek Hill. You saw Tyreek Hill tonight, how important he is. Man, he just keeps reassuring me that he's the best receiver in the league every time I see that guy, man. He is amazing. I know a lot of people say Jamar Chase, KJ Jefferson, but to me, it might still be Tyreek Hill just because how fast this guy is and how he catches the ball. And now he's, the Chiefs are without Tyreek Hill, and it's a little strange. I see Mahomes kind of evenly distributing the ball, I would say, all around. And I mean, to me, there's no go-to wide receiver. There's just Kelsey, but the Bucks should be able to slow that down. We're seeing the Bucks as a favorite here. The market's saying that they're a favorite. I think that's a big statement. I think that the Bucks coming into this game off the Packer loss is a good spot for them. This is a game where the Chiefs do not need to win. The Chiefs care more about the AFC opponents and stuff. I mean, I'm sure they would love to win every game, but the Bucks, I feel, almost need this a little bit more after that last loss. And minus maybe playing in Buffalo, Kyle, I think Tampa Bay's got the best home field advantage. Part of that is Tom Brady, of course, in football. So I'm going to give you a strong lean to the Bucks. I'm not ready to bet it just because their offensive line woes, and just for everybody, there's a ton of injuries this week. And if you don't have a good position on a game right now, then I would just completely wait till this injury report's completely done by Friday, Saturday. The Friday practice is the most important coming in. You still don't know. Sometimes people will say game time decisions, but get as much information as you can. I'm going to lean to the Bucks. Kyle, what do you got?
Well, Kiev, first, I have to say I find this to be a really tough week in the NFL. I really don't like a lot here in the NFL. I did take the Bengals here tonight, so fortunately I got a win to start it off. But I don't think I'm going to have a very big card in the NFL this weekend. I think it's a tough week. Like you said, a ton of injuries, also some weather questions in some of the games in the NFL. So there's a lot of unknowns. We don't like unknowns. I have to say that I think if I was forced to bet this game, I might bet the over, especially if we think some of those skill position guys are going to come back for Tampa Bay. These games have gone really low here for Tampa. I know Tampa definitely has a good defense. They're definitely a very good defense, but 45.5 in a game with Mahomes involved, even without Tyreek Hill, they have enough that they should be able to move the ball pretty well. Kansas City off that weird game against the Colts. It's hard to make too much of that game. The Colts have been a weird team so far this year for sure. Tampa Bay is a very good team. Brady hasn't looked great, but he doesn't have that much help. Mahomes is still one of the best quarterbacks, obviously. I know that the under has been bet in this one pretty heavily. I think this one was maybe 47 or 48. I know it's come down. This is a 47 down to 45, and now it's back up to 45.5. So I think over would be the way I'd look here. I honestly don't know what I'd take on a side in this one.
I like your overlook because Butker. So here's what's going to happen. They're going to be at the 35-yard line, 30-yard line. They're going to be going for it, which is good. You're either giving the team better field position, not settling for field goals, or you're going to get the touchdown just by getting that fourth down. And that's what Kansas City can do. So it almost gives a little bit more variance to the game itself. Butker might play. According to this, I'm hearing it's more of a no, but who knows with these place kickers. They were so bad last week that they missed their field goals and should have won that game against Indianapolis. But if you look at Tampa's injury report, it's definitely much bigger. I expect Julio to play, though. I kind of expecting Godwin to play, and Evans isn't suspended anymore. All those guys were out. You had Perryman and Gage fumbling the ball all over the place last week against the Packers. They were put in bad situations, but I do hate the Josh Wells injury that's been burning them. Ryan Jensen back early when the season started, and then obviously Donovan Smith's questionable. If I can get those guys back, maybe if Hicks somehow can play, then I really like Tampa. So that's what I'm looking at, really. And I agree, Kyle. Very tough week in the NFL.
I think Godwin's a real key to that offense. So I'd want to watch for his status for sure. And like you said, I mean, it is pretty hard when you have guys like Evans and Godwin and the whole group of those guys out. Brady's put in a lot tougher position. I think Tampa Bay's offense will improve a lot. And sometime in one of these next few weeks, somebody's going to be saying, wow, Tampa Bay, look at Brady looking really good again, after a rough start. I think it's kind of predictable that that's coming. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the Rams versus the Niners. And this is -1.5 here. Quick share my screen. Total is 42.5, Kyle. It's funny. I was on a podcast with Adam Chernoff, and he pointed this out. It's kind of funny to see this total here with you got great receivers, Deebo Samuel, you got George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, you got Cooper Kupp, Robinson, the best receivers. You got good quarterbacks, Matt Stafford. You got Jimmy Garoppolo if he's not rusty. You got two of the best offensive minds in Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. Why is this total the same as like the Jets game? Why is this total similar to the Commanders versus the Cowboys? I found that very interesting, and I'm just going to say I agree with everything he says. I look back on covers, and I'll share my screen here. Basically, what I saw was this was more of a 45-point total over the years. You see this. Now, some of them went under, as you can see, but you have 46 right here. You have 47, you have 50, you have 45, 51, 45.5, 49.5. You got to go all the way back to 2017 when it was just below 45. And it was really interesting to me to see that. Why is the total so low? Well, total's been getting hit under this year because of the illegal contacts not getting called. Everyone thought illegal contact would get called. But more importantly, just based upon the strength of these teams, I like the over in this game, and I hit it, and I bet it for a couple stars. I think it's going to be a close game. The San Fran has really ATS, as you can see, owned this whole relationship for a while. Even in the playoff game, they covered. They didn't win, but they were winning a lot of these games before. You see, in 2022, they won before the playoff game. Then 2021, they won that game. Then 2020, they won the last game. They've been winning these games straight up all the way back since 2018. So Kyle Shanahan knows how to move the ball. The Rams play a cover two, deep cover two when they're winning. And it's just allowing so many yards and so many situations to get them. Do they tighten up in the red zone? Yes. But still, this is a situation where the Niners know how to play against these teams. This over is still too small for me, Kyle. I took it over 42. It's 42 and a half. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't really looked at the total much to know what I think of that one. It does seem pretty low. Garoppolo looked pretty bad last week, certainly. I mean, I had the 49ers, and that was just brutal.
So did I. I had the +2, thank God.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you bested me on the line there.
Little pat on the back there, yeah.
Yeah, no, I that happens. I mean, I've had it go that way myself before. Usually I'm pretty good at grabbing a line early. I was just a little bit too late on that one, then took money line. And oh man, it's just a little bit too short. It's tough to lose by 1 point with a -3 turnover margin, and then also stepping out of the back of the end zone, with the safety. Really, I mean, Denver looked terrible and they still won the game. Who does that say more about, Denver or the 49ers? I'm not really sure. We'll see what happens with Denver going forward. I mean, Russell Wilson does not look good so far this year. What I think is the 49ers have really dominated this series, and really they probably should have won the playoff game between these two. I mean, they kind of blew that game. And then I also say the other big key in this game that really would make me worry about betting the 49ers, even though Shanahan's owned this series, Trent Williams is a massive loss. I mean, that guy is an absolute beast. I think you could say he's probably a top 10 or 15 player in the NFL as far as importance. I mean, he is such a good protector there, and I don't think you can just have somebody step in. I think Garoppolo gets a little bit concerned without him in there as well. Jimmy G is a little tough to get a read on. Yeah, I think he's better than some people say. He's obviously not great, and he can be mistake prone. I would probably lean to the over, but I think if I had to bet a side here, I would bet the Rams. The Rams started the year off getting blown away by the Bills. I think several teams will get blown away by the Bills this year, honestly. And even in their loss, they had more than double the yards as the Dolphins. I think the Rams probably kind of are a team that could be undervalued, if anything. And I think they come into this one in a pretty good spot. This is a Rams team that I don't know if you'd call it a good showing in their last game against the Cardinals. I mean, they won in Arizona 20-12. The defense played well, at least, only giving up 4.5 yards per play. I think the Rams have been a little bit underwhelming so far this year, but I think that they're kind of due for a good game at some point here soon. And I think that the Rams defensive line could give the 49ers some trouble without Trent Williams.
It really has to have the Jimmy Garoppolo less rusty. It was a tough game in Denver, but there's a wide open Deebo Samuel he threw way behind to get important first down that game, and that was frustrating to see. I just think it was rust because they didn't want to play him in the summer. They're looking to trade him. I think that way they treated that guy was absolutely crazy with trusting a rookie that's never really played in the NFL, minus that one bad game against the Cardinals last year. If you like the over, here's a couple things that help you a little bit. You got a bunch of secondary hurt. Kendrick, Fuller, Long, Durant for the Rams, all questionable. And for the 49ers, they lost one of their linebackers. And I think is more of a key guy than people really talk about, Azeez Al-Shaair. He's a big run linebacker there that could, they're going to be able to put up some yards against the Niners, I think, for once. And you're right, this Trent Williams thing sucks. They're just going to have to try to get some guy to fill in. But yeah, it's over, and I think that this could be hopefully one of those really close games in the low 20s to get you there comfortably. maybe a chance of overtime or something like that. So always hope for that. You never handicap overtime. So that's good stuff, Kyle. That leads us to our most likely dog to cash in. So last week was unfortunate because I was on one of the most bad beats of all time where Missouri lost it 3 times, literally with a couple seconds. Just when he dropped that ball before going in the end zone in overtime, it was just perfect. It was they missed the field goal to win. The other team, Auburn, gets a penalty on a missed field goal, and they move 5 yards up and hit their field goal. Then they're about to score the touchdown. The guy fumbles before the 1 and all the way through the back of the end zone. It was just absolutely amazing. And yours was so close too. 4-0 turnover ratio with Oregon State against USC, and they still blew. Just couldn't do it. And you figured the spread at least they hit the spread. And I'm surprised it wasn't more of a, I guess, distance there with the loss, 17-14. A lot of people had the over in that game too, Kyle. USC versus Oregon State. So. Yours was really close. Thank goodness Dylan's James Madison came through, which was a nice plus 220. But I'm going to go with NC State. And I think that you're going to get about plus 200 on them. Let me pull them up. Got us pivot back to college here. I'm liking where the weather is going in this. And I was really concerned about the weather against Clemson because NC State, I don't think, has a great run game, right? I'm trying to find, here it is. So NC State does not have that run game, and that's where I thought Clemson could, capitalize. It's going to be, they would just run all over NC State. But now, if you look at the weather, Kyle, it's actually gotten a lot better. At least on covers here, it shows a precipitation chance of only 23.8. It's showing wind of only 8.9, and this keeps going down and down. As you can see, this over is back up to 43.5, as you pointed out. To be honest with you, Kyle, I think that Clemson their defense might even be worse than NC State's defense. If you look at the EPA, NC State's defense is 13th. Clemson's is 56. You saw Wake Forest be able to push yards against them last week. I thought Wake Forest blew that game. I thought they had that game. And I think metrically, box score wise, they really won that game. Uiagalelei always just kind of lucks into some situations here. But if you look at just metrics, and obviously I don't love looking at metrics early in the season, it shows NC State is the better team. And it's not like NC State played the worst schedule. They did have a tough one against Eastern Michigan. But at the plus we got plus 220 right here. I think it's worth taking a shot.
All right. I've been sitting over here trying to decide between a couple, Kiev. So I'm gonna go. I considered going with a. Obviously, we have a question too. Let's put this on here. I'm not a huge fantasy guy. Let's see.
Oh, Romeo Dobbs over Deontay Johnson.
Oh, man,
absolutely.
Deontay Johnson's really good.
Going to Deontay Johnson. And I really think the Patriots defense are, to put it in Packer terms, Swiss cheese. I would start Dobbs over Deontay Johnson personally. I'm not. I think Mitch is just a walking dead man right now. So I know it's the Jets, but the Jets, this is a big spot for the Jets too.
I would agree, and Dobbs is a really talented player. Deontay Johnson's really good, but he's in a bad situation. So I think I would tend to agree with that. I'm going to take Cal here against Washington State for my most likely money line underdog. They are +4, plus 160, plus 165 on the money line. Cal has been a great underdog team. If you look at Justin Wilcox, he's been absolute money in the bank when it comes to betting him as an underdog, and they've won almost all the games outright, Kiev. They've won a lot of those games. I think Cal could win this game. Washington State put a lot into that game last week against Oregon. Then they have a huge game against USC coming up. It'd be kind of natural for this to be their game that they care a little bit less about, or at least have a letdown, kind of that sandwich spot game. Cal's kind of a inconsistent team, so I could see them losing by margin here. But taking the money line here at that plus price, I think, is a good way to look, because I see this as a 50-50 game. And if you're giving me plus 160 and a 50-50 game, I'll take it.
Any bet on Justin Wilcox, I love Kyle. So, I'm a fan of his. He was great when he was on the Badgers for a short amount of time. And yeah, I mean, just the way they played Notre Dame tells you that they can kind of match up in the trenches with anybody right now. And anytime Cal's a dog, wow, yeah, they've been fantastic. Justin Wilcox there. So
absolutely.
So great stuff, man. Well, Kyle, awesome stuff. Where could our viewers and listeners get your great information for the weekend?
Yeah, you can head over to huntersportspicks.com. I've been on a great run here of late, and knock on wood, we'll try to keep it going as long as we can. 22-5 in the last 27 plays overall. So I already have 5 plays up for college football this weekend, still considering a couple more. Like I said, I think it'll be a lighter weekend for me in the NFL. The free plays did well last weekend as well. And overall, the free plays are about 59% now in like the last 5 or 6 years from the newsletter. So you can sign up for that over at huntersportspicks.com as well. You can sign up for that at the top of the page, and follow me at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter. And I hope we can have another good weekend.
Absolutely. And check us out, theoddsbreakers.com. Big weekend coming up. Lots of great games. We're going to have everything prepared for you. Definitely already have some plays to give out. Very excited for this weekend. If you have any questions, you can always contact Kyle or I. We're always available. We love answering questions. We're here for you guys. So thanks again for joining us, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend, and go get some winners.
Thank you for watching Better Odds Sports Betting.